You're listening to the Raising Anchor Soccer Show with Matt Entrekin and Jason Carey, your home for news, analysis, and everything Rhode Island FC. Each week, they take you inside the locker room, inside the tactics, and inside the storylines shaping RIFC. Now, here's Matt and Jason. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Raising Anchor Soccer Show. I'm Matt, this is Jason, and boy, do we have a great episode in store for you guys. First and foremost, Jason Carey, how are you doing, my friend?
Doing well. Are things finally happening?
Things are happening. I mean, I feel like it's so typical with any sport, really, but especially right now here, we were in the doldrums for such a long period of, the season's over, and we benefit from a later season than most as we made it all the way to the Eastern Conference Final. And then we get the block party, we get the roster decisions and the schedule for 2026. And then it's just everyone go on vacation. The team starts working on the next season. Everything kind of goes into quiet mode. Things are still happening. Some people enjoyed vacations. I'm sure Coach Kano went back to Bermuda for a bit, but here we are. We spend 2 to 4 weeks of just nothingness. And now 4 days in a row of back-to-back news? Like, I don't know if my cup could take another drop of Rhode Island FC news at this point.
I mean, I guess it would be nice to kind of have it spoon-fed over a certain amount of time, but at the same time, I think that these people deserve their vacations too. So I imagine that's probably why we didn't see a lot over the break there. Everyone was kind of taking some well-deserved time off.
Absolutely. And, now here we have so many signings that I don't think we're going to have the time to cover all in just this one show with this new format. So spoiler alert, you're not going to hear everything. If you're a diehard of the club, I don't know what to tell you other than you're going to have to wait till the next show we do, because otherwise we're going to run long.
Yeah, that's just how it's going to happen. I think going forward with this new format, we're going to kind of have to split kind of what is maybe pressing, and we'll kind of figure that out as we go, and what can we maybe leave till next time.
We're eventually going to have like an after hours YouTube special page where we put the other 60 minutes of our normal programming for the diehard listeners. But speaking of this new format, I've been talking to people. We put out the first test of this new show format. Have you heard any reception on your end? I've heard some things, but curious if you've heard anything yet.
I've seen, some positivity and some other people who really do enjoy our kind of long format. So it's definitely going to be a balance of how to, unfortunately you can never please everybody. Someone's always going to want something different. So we will definitely listen to feedback and do the best we can because we do this for you guys. But I think so far so good is what I'd say.
I've heard mostly pleasant things, maybe one or two. They've more complained that they don't know what to occupy that other 45 minutes that will now be missing from their lives twice a week. But you're right. Mostly it's been really exciting. People enjoyed that first round. Again, it was the first one out the gates. Who knows how well this show is going to run when we get to real games and we've got less than 24 hours to turn around an actual show. Because remember, right now, we strategically gave us, 5-6 days to put the best, and by no means should anyone ever call it great content, but it took us 5 to 6 days to get to one show of meaning. And now we're going to be trying to do that in 24 hours turnaround with, a 45-minute show. So who knows?
Hey, this is our preseason here. So it's just us getting some reps in, and we'll kind of have it figured out hopefully by preseason.
I mean, I've already skipped medical then, so I'm in trouble, buddy. I'm in big trouble. Want to ask you a couple of other questions, some big news around the league as we finally see Brooklyn FC's first signings. That's one of those new teams arriving to the championship here in 2026 in the Eastern Conference. And alumni alert, we have the one and only Gabby Alves joining the team.
Yeah, turns out they are a real team. And hey, congrats to Gabby Alves for making his return to the championship. Can't wait to see him, score Golasso against us. We cry.
I will never forget one of our conversations with Gabby as he started to fade out of, let's call it, relativity with the club, as he suddenly was, relegated to bench roles after his injury in the middle of that season. And then the club kind of got hot. Morris Dugan joined at that point. But I remember his last game before he got injured, he had shown Coach Kano a whole new side of what could be done on the left flank, had taken some shots at a range that nobody had really seen in the early stages of this club. And Kano, his words to Gabby before his injury were, do more of that and then we never got to see it again. So I anticipate just a banger coming in and getting past either Koke Vegas or maybe one of these new goalkeepers that we're not even going to talk about tonight in the near future. And the best news, Jason, we're going to get to see Gabby Alves 3 times, both the home and away leg, and they're going to come up for that now Prinks Cup, which replaces the Jägermeister in our Cup tournament amongst the regular season. So exciting things ahead for sure. Now, I want to ask you, though.
Yeah.
We joked off the air, and we said, which one do you think we would see first? Brooklyn FC released their first signings, or Hartford Athletic finally released their 2025 roster decisions?
It's weird. Like, are you probably going a little crazy if you're a Hartford fan? Right?
Yeah, I mean, the Hartford strategy, and I don't even like talking about them, but I've watched this from afar over these last couple of days now. Rather than release the roster decisions and announcements like every other club has going into, like, all of them were done before the end of 2025. Hartford sheepishly kept it quiet. We thought that was because there was potentially an Anthony Siaha move in there to the Red Bulls. That's what the Blazing Musket had reported. That doesn't pan out. And now they're just releasing a player every day that's returning that was already on an established contract. So these poor Hartford fans, I mean, they're already poor because they're Hartford fans, but they have to now live through, they don't even know the players. I don't like punching down on organizations because it's really hard to run a soccer club, but like, how did you drop the ball on this?
Yeah, it's really weird. Not the way I would have done it. They wanted to see that sheet, and they're like, we could turn this into a bunch of clicks instead of just one event.
Yeah, I guess the content creation needs to come from somewhere. So Thank goodness we're Rhode Island FC fans, and props to the communication team, the marketing team. They are very good about giving an accurate snapshot of what's happening around the club, more so in a lot of ways, better detail than most. I'm excited too. I don't know if you've paid attention to this. Have you noticed that a lot of information is now getting shared around like player contracts and it's across the championship? Like, it feels like we're taking a baby step into the next level of professionalism within the league.
Yeah, I think with the looming D1, I think that's something that they're going to need to continue to work towards. And it's good to see, even if it's baby steps, hopefully that will continue as we get closer to this ultimate, pro rel D1 kind of system.
Injury reports every Friday by 12 o'clock, contract lengths, maybe even salary disposition, because we know that's all of the USLPA conversation right now happening there. But lots to talk about, but we got to move on here to Centerville Bank Stadium news. I know the times got released, but we're going to put that into next show because it came a little late today. And I really want to unpack the larger story here, I think, of the fact that Centerville Bank Stadium has once again unveiled that another sport will be joining its impressive collection, calling games at home here at Centerville Bank Stadium in 2026. The Premier Lacrosse League has announced the inclusion of CBS into its set of matches to be hosted between May 15th and the 17th. Interesting, when I looked at the promo, it didn't have a specific team announced to it, but instead had the PLL logo across it. So I don't know enough about the sport yet. I don't know if like a bunch of the teams will go, like if everyone kind of shows up in that space to participate, because it's multiple days of events. So I don't know if it's the Boston Cannons, a very famous lacrosse team before they joined the PLL. That feels like home ground territory, similar to the Free Jacks being up in Quincy, playing down at Centerville Bank Stadium. I don't really yet know enough. I'm not into lacrosse, but you can't deny the fact that this is yet just another impressive feature that Centerville Bank Stadium is going to be able to kind of put a spotlight on amongst so many other things that are going on.
Yeah, and so if I start to kind of piece together everything we've got, okay, so beyond USL games, there was an MLR rugby final.
We'll have another one of those again. I think we're for 3 years. I think they're locked in for the final, no matter which teams at Centerville Bank Stadium.
So, and then Governor's Cup between URI and Brown, 7 Boston Legacy NWSL matches, potentially some more Boston Banshees rugby games.
Haven't heard the status, but if they played a couple last year and the league doesn't fold, I imagine they're going to play more. Yeah.
And then now lacrosse. I mean, that's pretty good growth, right? Especially for something a lot of naysayers were kind of like trying to bring down. I mean, we've got most of the rectangles covered.
We're missing Monster Jam and like ice hockey.
I mean, do they do outdoor squared circle? Can we get
I mean, I did talk to Paul Byrne, the general manager of Centerville Bank Stadium, and he said there was an idea to put an open ice rink on the stadium pitch and then use it for some exposition games, whether that was the Providence Bruins, it was other NHL franchises, maybe an NHL like game itself. I don't know, but then use that as an opportunity to have an open rink for residents of Pawtucket to use afterwards. So like it didn't pan out in year one, but if it's his idea that he wants to see kind of, marinate and potentially be, I wouldn't be surprised if we hear something about that. Maybe not this year with the World Cup, but at least in the next 2 years. It's a perfect place to use something in those colder months.
Yeah, absolutely.
The real question then, though, Jason, I'm going to put this on you. The only thing I yet have not heard, and we were supposed to have 2 of these last year, is a concert. So I'm going to ask you, since we didn't get our 2 concerts that I was told that they were already locked in and that they were going to happen, and then nothing happened. So I don't know if the dates that were shared with me were wrong and it was a 2027 and those 2 concerts are floating over, if logistically it didn't work out. But I'm going to ask you, what music do you think should be the first thing that the Rhode Island fandom gets to hear at a Centerville Bank Stadium? And do not say Taylor Swift.
Okay, so
or Ed Sheeran.
Not Taylor Swift, not Ed Sheeran. I don't know. Maybe we can we convince David Brin to reunite with the Talking Heads and they can play?
That would be a top 5 concert of all time. That's like Pink Floyd at Pompeii.
Oh yeah, no, you couldn't actually. That wouldn't be big enough for that. That'd be too big of an event. But you can dream, right?
Well, I mean, I just want to hear Talking Heads more this season for goal production, so that could be enough. But hey, let's see if we can get the band back together and start making some sense. In the meantime, we got to go to break, and when we get back, there's a new Rodriguez in town, as well as seeing a familiar face leave for yellower pastures. We're going to get to all of that and so much more, all here on the Raising Anchor Soccer Show. Thank you for listening to tonight's broadcast, powered by Sprout Coworking. For all your business needs, large or small, visit sproutcoworking.com, powering 990 WBOB. That's sproutcoworking.com. Now, let's get back to the Raising Anchor Soccer Show on WBOB 990 with Matt Entrekin and Jason Carey. All right, Jason, we're back on the Raising Anchor Soccer Show, and I like starting with bad news because we get the bad news out of the way, and then we move on to the good news. Some devastating news this week for Rhode Island FC fans, as the one and only Albert Chico Diqua is no longer a Rhode Island FC player, as we learn, and it was a surprise to me and you.
Man. Mr. Chicolio's gone.
Chicolio himself, and it was so many signings this week. There were so many additions. Really surprised to hear that Diqua returns to the Riverhounds, where he had seen so much success as the Golden Boot winner back in that 2023 Supporter Shield run, now returning with the current USL incumbents and the champs from last year. Listen, there were rumors about this at the beginning of the offseason last year. We had heard from multiple sources that a player was possibly, and then it turned into probably, and then it became it's absolutely happening, would be departing the club. Had some speculation amongst ourselves, had asked a couple of our details. We knew that both Maxi and Chico were most likely the potential targets. Obviously, Maxi's production didn't quite pan out after being the marquee signing of 2025. Chico on one of the longest contracts in the history of Rhode Island FC, not necessarily seeing all of the production we had wanted to see. So we knew it could be one or the other. Maxi Rodriguez gets the marching orders to return back to his former club, and I think it's over. Like, we're done with that news. I don't even look to continue to pursue that tangent. And then here we come, getting completely caught off guard with the fact that Chico also joins him and leaving and returning back to his former club. I didn't even think this was possible. Overall thoughts on how this went down and Chico's departure back to his former Riverhounds?
Yeah, definitely unexpected. We talked about the marquee signing leaving, and after Rodriguez left, we thought, oh, okay, well, that's it. I think that to a certain extent, maybe with Chico, thought too that maybe it just wasn't going to happen, in a sense that he didn't really live up to the expectations to a certain extent that we had for him. And I kind of thought that maybe that would drop his stock price, and we wouldn't be able to just offload him, right? It would have to wait till his contract is up. He'd be a free agent, and from there, someone would probably pick him up, because there's still definitely a talented player there. But I also kind of not surprised because, like I said, there was a lot of expectations and it just never really panned out for him with us.
Yeah, probably the biggest question we got in the mailbox was, who initiated this trade? Was this Chico wanting to go? Was this Coach Cano looking for a way out of this? Was this the Riverhounds, coming and asking on the status of Chico? And honestly, it was probably a little bit of everyone, because when you look at Chico, he was on the last year of his contract and he was getting relegated to lesser and lesser of a role with the club. And we'll talk about his production numbers here in a second. You look at Cano, who, and there's been arguments for the last 6 months over the effectiveness of his ability to coach this team. He had one of the best defenses in the league. He got to the Eastern Conference Final. The only, caveat to the overall season was the lack of goal production, which you could then firmly square right between Chico and JJ Williams, both of them inconsistent on the pitch last season, not reproducing the same numbers they saw in 2024. And then you've got the Riverhounds, which let go famously of Augie Williams right after they won a title, and they're in need of some star power, something that makes sense for them on the forward attack, and they know it's a known quantity with Chico. I wouldn't be surprised if all three of them kind of said, hey, like, I think there's a deal here to be made that makes sense amongst all parties involved. Let's at least explore the conversation and see what could happen from there. And so, yeah, the long answer is, Jason, we don't know. We don't know who initiated this. I can tell you Chico was not unhappy with the environment, with the club, with the players. He was probably unhappy with himself because this is probably one of his worst years in terms of production. Although he would tell you too that it was one of his best years from an assist perspective, right? His assist numbers were higher than they've ever been. And I can tell you too, he loved the fans. I mean, if there's one thing you know about Chico, his ability to interact with fans is probably one of the best in the club. I would say between him and like Noah Fuson, like they'll pour themselves like until they are empty when it comes to fan engagement. Everyone else is great, but like those two go the extra mile. And if you know anything of Chico's past with other fans from Pittsburgh, and we saw it at the ECF, they hated Rhode Island FC. They tolerated Chico in the moment. Several fans went and got pictures. They loved him still, even though he was playing for the other team. And Danny Rivera plays for the other team. He didn't get that reception. Mark Ibarra didn't get that reception until he got the red card and the sleeper cell was activated. But nevertheless, this is about Chico right now. I want to go over some of the things in the stats, because I think if this is his goodbye, let's make sure we give him the appropriate flowers and then I think deserved critique about how his performances were here while he was with the Amber and Blue. Didn't realize 19 goals across all competitions with the Amber and Blue, actually tied still for first place with JJ Williams at 19. Arguably, some of those goals he was a monster in the cup competition, or it was basically any elimination soccer Chico was activated for this year, not so much in the regular season. JJ Williams, other way around, didn't have any impact on the Jägermeister, the Open Cup, or in the playoffs. But again, 19, and then he's actually the all-time, as of right now, record holder for goal contributions. He's at 29 goal contributions across all competitions. JJ's right behind him at 28. So it's not nothing that he made an impact on this club, but there was that consistency problem and a couple of the other positives that he needs to be remembered for a long time to come. The hat trick against Hearts of Pine, especially considering how successful Hearts of Pine was this season, being able to best them in the Open Cup. And then when we saw them in the Jägermeister Cup and he was able to kind of do that damage, I think that was his second hat trick in his personal history. And it felt really good to see it, because up until that point, he'd kind of been all over the place. Again, goals weren't coming. And then suddenly the waterfall came around the corner and it was like, oh, wow, this man can score goals. So it was exciting to see. But Jason, his ultimate legacy for now, and I don't think it's going to be beat for a very long time, he holds on to the fastest goal in club history, under a minute. I think it's 41 seconds against San Antonio, that gifted us with the fusion dance goal celebration with Noah Fuson. And you just can't ever take that away, buddy. You cannot take that. And I don't know how you're going to get a faster goal. It's like top 20 fastest goals in the USL Championship. So we could see the name Chico get immortalized right then and there for a long time to come.
Yeah, I think that record's going to stand for a long time. If we want to, like you said, maybe bring up a few critiques here or some negatives about his overall time with us, 3 goals in regular season across 1,630 minutes. Yeah, that's not particularly great here. Two in one postseason game almost matched his 27 matches in regular season.
I didn't even realize that. Yeah,
I mean, that's he like you said, it's in those cup matches.
That's 0.09 per game goal production at what, 800 minutes per goal, something like there's 700 minutes per goal. Like, oof.
Yeah, and then like, unfortunately, when it comes to him, and we can also lump Maxi into this too. We kind of saw more success from those players when they were substitute roles, right? When they were not starting and they would kind of come off as impact subs for us. We saw better production and numbers from them as opposed to giving them that start.
I mean, speaking of Maxi, I mean, it's fair to associate both of them. Producer Torin had a great breakdown on our social medias earlier this week. Looking at it on the surface level, and I know like you can't really talk goal production, Matt. It was such a bad year for that. 29 goals, second worst in the league, I think. But we now have lost 2 of our top 4 goal scorers in 2025 for this new season in Maxi Rodriguez, who was 4th, and Chico, who was 2nd. Fuson and Williams are the only 2 left of that group. What does this say for Kano for the work ahead? Where do these goals come when we've just now lost 2 of our top goal contributors?
I mean, you could see in some of the signings that we're going after, when we look at, Leo from Inter Miami fame, if you will. We went and we're looking at some Argentinian players here as well. One signed, one rumored, and I think we're kind of tending to some more young, exciting kind of attacking talent there. So Kano definitely knows that it was like a problem there. I don't know. It's yet to be seen if this is the solution, but there's definitely some change coming in that kind of midfield forward line here.
Did you see Afonso, though? Be honest. We don't know him yet, right? We know he's an MLS player coming down a level, but I didn't necessarily see him day one competing for Chico's job or JJ's. I looked at him as the missing Mark Doyle, that third striker option. I won't even say rotation because I don't think that's fair, where he could play on the wings or be like a sheep in wolf's clothing in that central channel to augment against a JJ or a Chico. Now we're right back to the same problem as we had before. We're down to 2 forwards. I know if Fusan's not a forward, he never will be, in my opinion, unless we're super desperate. So do we need to go out and get a third striker, or was this all part of the plan? And Leo Afonso, we have to give him a little bit more, credit and a little more leeway that he is really the guy to come in and backfill Chico.
It's hard to say, right? We started year one thinking we're going to play some version of a 4-3-3. We ended up in a 3-5-2. We started this last year playing like a pseudo 4-2-3-1, shifted into like a 3-4-3. So how does year 3 start? Are we going to continue as a 3-4-3? Does coach have other plans? Right, when we look at the flexibility of a lot of these players and, just the way that Kano likes to throw curveballs at us, it's really hard to predict exactly what we're going to see. I think a lot of fans, and I think maybe ourselves included, are going to kind of take what we saw at the end of this last season and use that as our blueprint going forward and how we're going to look at the makeup of the team. But until the team sheet hits on that, March 7th, that first day, and even then, until we see them line up on the field, we're not going to know exactly what we're getting into here.
Now, how about this then? I'll ask this before we go to break. In a 3-4-3 or in the 4-2-3-1, in a lone striker system, in your opinion, how many depth forwards do you really need at that top line? Like, I know everyone wants Cal Jennings. Everyone's holding on for the miracle that the Padawan will join us. But let's say we don't, or let's say Kano wants to wait till the summertime before even thinking about picking up an additional strike force contributor. Is 2 strikers enough in a 1 striker system?
Yes and no. I mean, 2 if you can keep them both healthy. You would probably want a third player who's almost more of an academy player, if you will, who the idea is you're like the backup to the back. Yeah, someone who's there for training purposes and is to maybe fill a bench spot at times on like rotation matches. But if we're doing lone striker, I would say we probably need at least 1 more, unless I don't really think Fison's a striker either, but who knows what's going to
Well,
happen.
we'll have to wait and see what decisions Kano makes, as we have had additional signings. A striker, not yet one of them after the acquisition of Leo Afonso. All we know for sure right now is Chico, a heartfelt thank you for your services. We wish you the best of luck in your new or returning team, as long as it's not against us. And, he never scored against the Riverhounds. Maybe we can continue that legacy of him not being able to score against Rhode Island FC. Gabby Alves, I'm okay with. I'm not okay with Chico scoring. When we come back, we're going to talk about more South American reinforcements having arrived, even if it might come with some strings attached. And have we seen the beginning of the fiercest battle for a starting role develop with these new signings? We're going to talk about all of that and so much more, as Rhode Island FC is just 51 days away from their home opener here on the Raising Anchor Soccer Show. Fans, as the weather becomes more and more unpredictable, be sure to check out 990 WBOB's weather page for all your temperature, storm, and travel info. Stay prepared for whatever Mother Nature has in store with the 990 WBOB weather page. Now, let's get back to the Raising Anchor Soccer Show on WBOB 990 with Matt Intrican and Jason Carey.
Looks like RFC is raiding Argentina for talent. Is that what we're...
Whoa. Teams in America doesn't raid South America, buddy. We don't do that kind of thing. Doesn't happen. We don't do that. Okay. Never. No, we're not even going there. Not going there, but maybe.
RFCs continue to add to its roster ahead of the 2026 USL Championship season by acquiring Agustin Pitti Rodriguez on loan from Club Atlético Lanús in Argentina.
I pity the fool, Jason. I pity the fool. I can already see the tifo in my mind's eye of this guy. If he's a breakout player for us, and they're gonna dress him Mr. T style, all the Natesky chains, the mohawk, amber and blue, and then the La Banda van behind. The tifo has already been built. As long as this player pays off for. So Pity better be doing some things so that he can pity some fools.
I mean, it sounds like they got to already just start making that anyway. That'd be
shirt merch. I got the shirt merch ready to go. Never mind. We're good.
Yeah, Augustine here. We've got a quote here from Kano. Augustine is a young and exciting attacking player with a high-level soccer education and background, says coach and general manager Kano Smith. Players of his profile have had real success in our league. We look forward to adding an extra dimension to our attack. Pitti began his professional career with Lanús in 2021, making 28 appearances for the club across all competitions in 5 seasons. During that time, he scored 1 goal and 2 assists, and the midfielder has also featured in 32 matches for the club's reserve side, Lanús 2, or would it be Lanús 2? I don't know, probably, where he scored 5 goals for them. We've seen loans not necessarily be successful for this club in the past, with regard onto like holding on to the talent and avoiding the inevitable recall. So is this total recall part 3, or like, what do we got going on?
I'm not ready for another recall. I mean, the Jack Panayiotou, then the Matthew Corcoran, is Pitti Rodriguez the next one? My gut says no. There's a lot of different things that go into this, but you look at Panayotou's probably a bad example.
This is also not a mid-season too, so
well, not yet. Maybe we'll just have him a little bit longer this season. It won't be as fast of a Band-Aid rip, but you look at Panayiotou, that recall never made sense. That felt like a team that was spiraling, and they had so much toxicity in the Revs locker room. They wanted to give him the chance in Leagues Cup, which he was getting minutes with us though. That was a bad call. The Corcoran one felt more like we knew it was coming. I mean, in that press release from Nashville, they kind of even said we may call him back right in the as we're going for the Open Cup final or maybe into the playoffs. Like, who knows? And he did. He played against Messi in the MLS playoffs. Like, we cannot be the team that continues to get rug pulled for players that get recalled on loans. That being said, it seems like there's a commitment this year to exploit some talent out of South America. This is a lot longer of a distance. I mean, this is not Nashville to Rhode Island. This is a player uprooting his life in probably one of the only places he's known in Argentina and plying his trade up here in America. So I think there's more weight and substance to this. And then also too, I don't know that he's really given any meaningful contributions to Lanús. I don't mean it, and we could. I'm sure there's going to be people online like, oh, why did we get this guy? He hasn't done anything. That's not why. Sometimes you find players that have potential that can't find their next step because there's too many players in front of them. South America is a gold mine for talent that not a lot of clubs in North America really go and try to mine. So I see this as an opportunity. But do I think a loan recall is in our future? I mean, by the stars and our luck, yeah, it's going to happen, but I don't think so at the same time. But the running joke would be, yeah, he'll be gone before June.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, in 2025, he did spend the back half of the year on a brief loan stint with Cypriot, first division club. I'm going to botch this. Anthoros Famagusta, where he made 4 appearances.
Oh, you don't know about Anorthosis Famagusta? That's like my favorite club outside Rhode Island FC.
I go to like some sort of weird diagnosis.
And I think that's a great point, is if Lanús was already loaning him out to other clubs, this seems par for the course. I didn't see a recall in that. He has U20 Argentina national team experience. Like there is potential here, and I think Kano's trying to extract value. I love that for this reason. And I will say this, no matter what the result of this kid is when we see him later this year, I like the idea of coaches finding new blood for the game versus the recycling we see so often in the championship, where how many players have we been watching on the transfer tracker that just moved from New Mexico to Colorado, from Charleston Battery to Indy 11, from Tampa to Miami and back?
It's just a giant game of USL musical chairs.
Yeah. And so when any coach goes and tries something different to bring talent, it puts the league on a marker. It puts the league on notice of like, hey, this can be a place you can go. Those players then go say, I had a great time in America, especially for Rhode Island FC. Maybe if they were playing at Loudon and dressing in cargo containers, different story. But I think this is a good move. I'm going to ask you a question instead. The joke is here of like, we've replaced Rodriguez with one Rodriguez, right? But more importantly,
saves on shirt reproduction, right?
I mean, I have a feeling this guy's a cheaper call. And someone did ask too, like, are we paying the wage bill? Normally for these kinds of moves, the parent club is paying almost all of the wage bill. So I imagine that will continue to stay in place here. But my question to you, Jason, is, did we need another midfielder? Now, we know about another signing we're going to talk about in a second. We have a forward already signed. We've had the keepers announced. We know of the rumor of another wingback potentially coming. Did we need a midfielder in what I thought was an already stacked midfield of Harivo, Holstead, Shapiro Thompson, Bacharach, and I feel like I'm still missing someone like Dwayne Atkinson. Like, I know it's always great to have depth, but like, where does this guy fit in that?
Yeah, and the one thing I guess I would say is that not all midfielders are created equally. With these type of players, it's hard to get a lot of good footage from them. But from what I've seen, he's not any way, shape, and form in the mold of, like Harivo and Holstead, right? Those are completely different players. So it looks like this player, from the little bit of footage I've been able to dig up on him, he's kind of an attacking midfielder, maybe looking at like an eye for goal, trying to create and score. So, if we play 3-4-3 again, if we just go with that for now, because we don't know any better, could he be, one of those wide forwards who can maybe tuck in to help create from the midfield and drive the ball forward? That being said, it's difficult to predict Kano's lineups here. He, like I mentioned earlier, he loves to throw curveballs at us. There's a lot of other flexibility with the players that we have. I don't know if he's got Bitti has some sort of hidden talent, and maybe he is also a right wing back. And now we're going, oops, all right wing backs this season.
So he's a center back for sure.
But like I fully expect him to be a part of the like midfield forward line as opposed to like our midfield destroyers.
And then with a player like this, again, there is always the possibility of recall from a loan. Do you see him being a player, if we're going to this distance to grab him, do you see him, without having seen him, possibly replace one of our current projected starters? Like, how real of a chance would it be that he displaces a Clay Holstead or a Hugo Bacharach? Again, assuming if it's a 3-4-3 and we already have Quizera up at the top left, Fuson at the top left, and let's just for fun say Alfonso on the top right. Again, is this a depth piece, a rotational piece, or do you see a player from what you've seen so far? Could he displace what we get out of more established players like Bacharach and Holstead in the middle?
I would say no. I think that there's maybe, right, he's still very young. So there's time for him to develop and grow to that. Maybe that could be like a mid to late season kind of thing, especially the way that this team has played the last few years, where they really take some time to like grow into their shell. And, based on historical data, I'm not going to, argue against that until I see any different. So, maybe midway season, we can ask that question again. But I'd say right now, no, he's either a depth or potential just kind of attacking option that we have.
Back to Kano and the formation, it continues to make me head scratch on exactly what we think we'll see from him. I remember reading an article from John Morrissey of USL Tactics where he said the back three system may be ready to finally die, and we may be seeing a renaissance of back four. And like I look at the amount of defenders and midfielders we have on this team, and like I don't know where you get the most value. There's so much competition now across those, unless Kano has the intention of playing these players out of their positions. And let's not pretend that he doesn't. If there's one thing Kano loves to say, he's like, I find the players that deserve to be on the pitch and I put them in the positions where I think they'll be successful. He doesn't care what your natural ability or what you're comfortable with. Steven Turnbull, rest in peace. I mean, he's not dead. He's just dead to this club. He never wanted to be a right wing back, and he still did it for a season. He did it well. So who knows what we have in store? I'd love to see if he could be. Maybe he's the third striker. We just don't realize it yet. So we'll have to wait and see. How many goals do you think this kid gets in his first season?
6 and 3 assists.
As long as they're all set piece goals, because we definitely need some set piece goals in our 2026 campaign. I will take it. But hey, we got to go back to our final break of the night. And coming up on this final leg, we've got reinforcements on the right side, and it's not the player everyone has been patiently waiting to hear get announced. All here on the Raising Anchor Soccer Show. Let's get back to the Raising Anchor Soccer Show on WBOB 990 with Matt Entrikin and Jason Carey. All right, Jason, it's time to bring it home. We went and got ourselves another MLS defender. Another one. RAFC have signed 24-year-old Nick Scardina, a midfielder, technically a forward, turned midfielder, turned defender, recently coming out of Charlotte FC of Major League Soccer. He departs Charlotte after entering free agency after his contract was declined in this 2025 season. Listen, I know we're hashtag not an MLS soccer show, but Charlotte did some good things here in this 2025 season. It was always going to be Messi's year. The storylines were written the day he had showed up, and they got a little wonky, so it was always Messi's season. Whitecaps put on a heck of a show. Charlotte also equally put on a heck of a season. I've watched a lot of this guy, and because as a domestic player, you get to see the tape. And
have you seen that ridiculous goal line clearance
he ran into the net? I think he broke some part of his body, got attached to that net and never left afterwards. Yeah, he must have hit that thing at Mach 6. That
was insane that he was able to pull that off.
Yeah, no, listen, I like what I see in him. He is a classic defender's defender. I think there's a lot of opportunity for him here. And even Kano said so much as well. He's an experienced defender who loves getting forward and adding to the attack, said RFC head coach and general manager Kano Smith. His experience and skill set on both ends of the pitch are incredibly valuable for us. I mentioned this a second ago. Kid was a striker in college.
I watched a very long youth video of him.
How much Sandstorm was attached to that YouTube video?
Probably all of it. Admittedly, I was watching it on mute, but I just imagined Sandstorm the entire time.
Yeah, massive forward in his collegiate playing, joins Charlotte in the academy system, and then in that period with Crown Legacy, which lets Nate Silvera, there's a connection there for him. I think Will Meyer has time at Crown Legacy as well before he went to NYFC too. Lots of Crown legacy, if you will. Then in that time at the MLS Next Pro, gets experimental and say, hey, we got tons of forwards. We've seen this before, Jason. The American system, they love to take our American attackers and go, by the time you get to the top flight, we're going to buy ourselves some internationals, some washed up Euro stars. So if you want to play, it's midfield or further back. And so he gets the midfield experiment as a right midfielder, does pretty well there. The senior team calls him up and says, hey, we love what you got, but we really need a right back. What are you thinking? And he goes, I'm DeAndre Yedlin. I got this in the wheelhouse. Converts into a right back and has a solid 2025 season with Charlotte. 1,029 minutes across 17 matches, earned himself an assist. I mean, this is a good signing. How many times, Jason, have we seen an MLS player come to USL, especially as a defender, and do extraordinarily well? Karifa Yao, Aime Mabika, like these are players that have now Hamadi Diop, like these are players when like they're very good, and I expect Scardina to be a continued part of that product and legacy.
Yeah. Like you just mentioned some important names there who've played really well for this team. And Nick here is, like you said, he's got some sizable minutes here. This is not just like he came on for like 3 garbage games and just showed up to practice every day and was good. But like he actually, in a weird way, I'm almost surprised they let him go with how much like time he put in, or some MLS like
I talked to Charlotte. They have other players that are just unfortunately better that they've acquired. So they all wanted to keep him. And that's the other thing too. When the community says, oh, we wish we hadn't let him go, that's always a great sign versus like, yeah, he was okay. Or take him off our hands, please. They just didn't need that much depth. So, and Don Garber money always gets wonky. So having an American player that isn't on your homegrown or your U22 initiative, if you can get value other places, or there's just a better player profile, like that's the nature of the reality of it. But I agree with you. Like from what I see, this is a competent right back. And since he can play as a right midfielder and he can play as a forward, this could be a right wing back. This could be the next Steven Turnbull for us. But Jason, make sense, because as far as I know, there's still a pretty good shot. Some considerable, smoke where there's fire where there's smoke of this rumored Isaiah Andrada from Velez arriving to Rhode Island FC any day now. So we kept Danny Rivera as our fullback, who got all of like 72 minutes last year. He was basically, I don't mean to like bridge the gap, but you know the Harry Potter series?
I know a little bit of
Enough of it. They have the bad guy, not Voldemort, but the kid, the one that's like the anti-foil to Harry Potter, Draco Malfoy.
Okay, yeah.
Did you know he only actually acted for like 80 minutes in the entire franchise?
Huh.
You're talking like 1,000 minutes of film, probably more actually. And this dude only acted for like 80 minutes. Danny Rivera, he's much nicer than Draco Malfoy, but Danny Rivera was Draco Malfoy for us last year in the terms of the amount of minutes he played. But we kept him, and I'm glad we did. But now suddenly we've got Nick Scardina, and if this Isaiah Andrada shows up, like we have 2 right wing backs and a fullback in a position that last year no one was available to play.
Yeah, maybe we're definitely like going heavy on the right side. I would say from what I've seen from Isaiah Andrada,
I love how you said it so much better than me, by the way.
I'd say that he has more, like he's more of a forward thinking wing back than I like, almost more of a right midfielder, if you will. Whereas like Danny Rivera and Nick Scardina here are more going to be your traditional. It's almost like we've got 3 options. I guess it's hard to say because I really haven't seen Danny Rivera play, but it's like, is he a right back? And then is Scardina a wing back? And then is, I say it's just a right winger. And do we have like all 3 different options for depending on?
But then you have Afonso, who we thought was going to be a potential right winger as well.
But then also Transfer Market says he's a left winger. So.
No, he is. No. And make it clear. Afonso is a left winger inverted.
So then do you have the same thing on the other side? You have Sanchez, Quizera, and Afonso, and you just have like all these 3 different versions of depending on what type of player you want. Because you can also use them in the 3 of the 3-4-3 up front and just be like, you're a forward now.
So then I guess I'd ask, is Sanchez the delegate left back if we go into a back 4? Because that's the thing I'm trying to figure out. That's the calculation I'm trying to do in my head is, if Rivera does get playing time and we move into like a game or an instance or a tactic where we need genuine fullbacks, we know Rivera. He is the survivor of the Bob Lilly system. Does Sanchez then become the left back? Because like we saw Sanchez and Quazera be interchangeable.
I mean, and somehow we then Voltron into like a 4-back line, and we have Sanchez and Rivera out there, and we just only 2 center backs. I mean, sure, like, you know, it gives us a lot of flexibility. I think the most exciting part here is now we don't have to pretend midfielders are right wing backs. So
I agree.
I'm all for that.
Unlocking Clay Holstead, unlocking Amos Shapiro-Thompson to be central channel. It's going to be a fantastic thing to see. Unless Connor decides that no, Clay Holstead was always the right wing back of choice, and Andrada or Scardina are playing Cam. Yeah, who knows? But listen, hey, I'm still excited. This is going to be a fun time ahead. We've got so much more to cover. It's just these shorter formats. We gotta keep them tight nowadays. I am really curious to see how these acquisitions all commingle together, especially with the stacking on the right side. And it's just going to be an exciting season ahead. Next week, we're going to touch base. We've gotten several questions in from, just wanting to know about the lockout, about the USLPA, and are we even having a season? Which for now, yes, the season is very much still on. We've got more signings to talk about that have already happened that we just couldn't get to. And then we have the schedule times, by the way, that released. And so I can't wait to talk about
and then
all
who
that.
Also knows what's going to drop in between now and then,
Oh, yeah. I mean, if this week was any precursor, we should. Oh, and actually, no, I do know for a fact that the season schedule, the preseason schedule will be out. So we'll be able to talk about the teams that we'll be scrimmaging against, the closed door sessions, whatever they'll share. So that should all come out tomorrow. By the time people are listening to this, they'll be like, yeah, we already have it in our hands. But nevertheless, it's an exciting time to be a Rhode Island FC fan. And I cannot wait. 51 days, Jason, just 51 days until we get to see Loudoun United finally get a beatdown they deserve, since they are completely depleted and that team is no longer what it once was with Ryan Martin and half of his squad gone to Oakland. So I can't wait to finally get that first win against Loudoun. It's going to be great.
Thanks y'all for joining us. Always a great time here on the Raising Anchor Soccer Show. We'll catch y'all later. Anchors up.
Anchors up.